Four legs good, two legs bad, four legs good, two legs bad. So does that sound familiar? If it does, then you guys must have read or watched a version of Animal Farm. And honestly, I mean, recently I had been reading Animal Farm, and it's a great book. Oh my gosh! I mean, like, this is one that challenges the mind. George Orwell is an absolute is and was an absolute genius, and he pretty much knew who his target audience was and what to write about. And during his lifetime, he was heavily underappreciated and underestimated. I mean, this is social commentary here. I mean, often when you look at a title that says Animal Farm, what's the first thing you think of? I mean, like, pretend you've never ever heard the story. What's the first thing you think of when you hear the words Animal Farm? I mean, for me, whenever I heard that title, all I could think was, oh, what a cute little kid's book. What a cute little idea for a coloring book kid's book. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. Oh boy, I was definitely wrong. This is no kid's book. I mean, sure, you could probably read it to your kids, but it's probably going to be one of the harder books to understand. I mean, this is not Charlotte's Web, but even Charlotte's Web had its own commentary, which is what people forget. And basically the plot of Animal Farm is that the pigs all gather together and believe that man is the evil one, because the man that owns their manor farm, Mr. Jones, has been absolutely awful. And Mr. Jones is often out drunk, forgets to feed them, and neglects his chores on the farm. So, what's the best way that they can survive? Remove man, and the fruits of their labors will be their own, instead of going straight to man. And they don't have to worry about being slaughtered, thus creating one of the pigs, Old Major's dream of animalism, which is basically where animals can be on their own, and in a figurative sense, stand on their own 4 feet, or 2 if they have wings, and they go by 7 commandments. First one, whatever goes on 2 legs is an enemy. Number 2, whatever goes on 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes. No animal shall sleep in a bed. No animal shall drink alcohol. No animal shall kill another animal. All animals are equal. And as time goes on, the pigs prove more and more how very hypocritical they are of these commandments. And one of them, Napoleon, starts breaking them commandment by commandment, and even adding things to it like no animal shall drink alcohol to excess, or no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets, or no animal shall kill another animal without cause. And ultimately completely undermines what animalism was supposed to be, which was that no animal shall ever come to resemble man. And by the very end of it, nobody can tell the difference between the pigs or the humans. And it's honestly a very, very powerful book. Obviously, I gave away the major parts of what Animal Farm is. But what about the movies? The 2 movies that came out about it, and from what I mean, And lately I've heard that Andy Serkis is going to do another movie on Animal Farm. Kudos for you, Andy Serkis. I want to see another Animal Farm movie. But what about the two we got? So, the first one, Animal Farm, made in 1954. This one was animated, and good grief, that animation looks great. And by the way, if you're parents and you think that this is going to be for kids, don't count on it. It definitely, it may look like Charlotte's Web from 1973, but it's not Charlotte's Web. It's not Charlotte's Web. There's a huge difference between that book and Animal Farm. And Animal Farm themes are not, they're not lighthearted. They're pretty heavy-handed. And even for this animated film, it's pretty heavy-handed the way it's delivered. But a lot of the things that go into this movie is it's phenomenal. Like, all the characters get voiced by just one guy. Maurice Denham. And that's actually, you got several different voices. They don't sound alike whatsoever. One minute you hear the chickens clucking, next minute you hear Squealer talking, next minute you hear the sheep bleating, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and none of them sound the same. It's almost like, this guy's really talented. He may not be the same level as Mel Blanc, but good grief, it's just as good. The way the characters are handled, it feels like that they pay heavy respect to the book, except they make a few differences. Like, for one, Snowball actually gets killed off, whereas in here, in the book, you never see Snowball again. He just runs off and you never see him again. The only things you ever hear about him are the propagandas that maybe he's still out there or he's getting help out there. But otherwise, you never see him again. He just escapes. In here, he does not escape. The dogs catch him and kill him off screen. It's horrifying. And on top of that, I'm giving spoilers, by the way. I am giving major spoilers in this video on both movies and the book. So, in this movie, it's probably got one of my favorite endings to any adaptation of Animal Farm, bar none. Which is basically that while the pigs are celebrating, and apparently the humans are absent at this party for some reason, the animals outside start rallying up and they storm the manor house and trample down Napoleon and Squealer. Of all the endings, this is easily my favorite. And yeah, I know, it's not in the book. In fact, the book literally ends on this very tragic sentence. If the pages will cooperate. Okay. This quick paragraph. 12 voices were shouting in anger, and they were all alike. No question now what had happened to the faces of the pigs. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, from pig to man again, but it was already impossible to say which was which. The end. And with a movie, you probably cannot end on that. Amazing if you do, but at the same time, in a movie, you want to have some kind of closure, and this gives no closure for a movie to hang off on. It just gives you a foreboding closure. In the same way that 1984, the book, gave a foreboding closure. So the animated film had to give a solid ending, and I think, in my opinion, it delivered on that solid ending and gave us an ending we all wanted to see. We wanted to see somebody oppose Napoleon and take down Squealer. I'm just going to say it. I hate Squealer more than I hate Napoleon, because Squealer is basically just the kind of character that will take what you know and twist it around like a politician. Except he's backing up Napoleon, and I hate Squealer so much. I want to turn him into bacon. So, yeah, just seeing that ending was so cool. And then in 1999, I came a live action version of Animal Farm, and honestly, kudos to you guys for all that you did, because man, this movie looks great. And it's completely underappreciated and underrated. And also, it's a star-studded cast, this one. And I didn't even recognize it. You got Kelsey Grammer as Snowball. You got Patrick Stewart as Napoleon. How in the world did I not recognize Patrick Stewart? That's one of the biggest, most recognizable voices. And then you've got the late Ian Holm as Squealer. I still hate that version of Squealer, but the actor was amazing, especially in Lord of the Rings. Rest easy. And then you got Peter Unstov as Old Major. And in case you don't know who that is, if you've ever seen Disney's Robin Hood, he's Prince John. And man, Peter actually sounds exactly what I would have imagined Old Major sounding like in the book. And he's just phenomenal. And you've also got Julia Ormond. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is Molly, and so forth. This is a star-studded cast, and yet I don't recognize the character. I don't recognize the actors in here. I don't see the actors in a recording booth. I just see the characters. And that's one of the few accomplishments that a star-studded movie could ever do. If they could ever do that. Another example of that was The Great Mouse Detective with Vincent Price as Ratigan. I couldn't even think of Vincent Price in the recording booth. I could just see the character. And the fact that Animal Farm did this as well is... And on top of that, how do you make these characters live action? These are talking animals. And that can't be easy to do in live action in 1999 without looking awkward. We've had films like Gordy where they had live action talking animals, but the mouth movements looked weird. Sadly. Even though that movie's a guilty pleasure of mine, the mouth movements were pretty weird. And you could tell that there was dubbing. With this movie, I eventually looked it up and found out that there was Jim Henson puppeteering a workshop involved in this movie, and I could kind of tell where the which ones could be puppets, like, sorry to ruin the illusion, Old Major is an obvious puppet. But the others, like Snowball and Napoleon, they're really good the way they are. They're probably hand puppets also, but you could tell they used those effects as well as real pigs and real animals in the mix. And that's got to be one of the hardest jobs. And probably the even harder job is the ending part where you have to show Snowball standing on his two hind legs. So how do you do that? And apparently you could kind of tell. I mean, you could tell that's a puppet, or that's a guy in a suit with a pig head, and the way they do it is terrifying but amazing. So, way to go, guys! And how dare you on the Rotten Tomato scores? How dare you? I mean, it deserves more than 40%, but then again, like George Orwell, it was probably underappreciated for the time and did not get the heart of it. But also, I mean, and that movie follows fairly decently close to the book, also, but it also makes some changes. And to be fair, any movie adapting a book is going to make changes. So, what are the changes they make in here? Well, they make Jessie, one of the dogs, a main character, and they make her the narrator, even though, according to the final chapter, she passes away. Um, and what else do they change? They also changed the ending too. So, I mean, and again, I've mentioned the final the final paragraph, and how there's no solid conclusion. What they do in here, which actually does feel kind of on a good level with the book, but also ends on a tragedy that I think maybe George Orwell could slightly appreciate, just slightly, is that Napoleon and Squealer, they rule Animal Farm, rename it Manor Farm, but some of the animals escape. And they just hide out for a long time and wait for Napoleon and Squealer to die. And eventually they come back and there's just nothing left of old Major's dream anymore. And I mean, just scars that need to be healed. The only thing that I don't think works is that Jessie, Jessie's pups, eventually warm up to her and are redeemed in the end. That's not quite how it works. That's not, I mean, like, brainwashing does not heal right away. I mean, it takes much, much longer. And Jessie's pups were stolen, like maybe a week or a couple days after they were born. So, unfortunately, that part does not quite work. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty good ending and a very sad one. I mean, Animal Farm was not meant to be a happy time. I mean, a happy movie at all. It was meant to be a cautionary tale. Yes, it was poking at what communism was. But in my opinion, it's also a cautionary tale about what happens when you let power corrupt you. Absolute power. And both movies and the book deliver on that. So, can I say which one is better? Unfortunately, okay, I can't say unfortunately on this because it's a pretty obvious answer that the book is actually superior. I mean, the movies are really good. Don't get me wrong. I like the movies. But they had to look up to the book first. And though they both have solid endings of their own, they can't stand on their own 4 feet without the help of George Orwell first. And honestly, this book speaks directly more than the movies could. But they're still good in my opinion, and I cannot wait to see what Andy Serkis does with his version of Animal Farm, and hopefully and please do not diverge from it. But then again, I'm counting on Andy Serkis to be faithful. So, see you guys later. And remember, 4 legs good. 2 legs bad.